Hello, and welcome to another episode of the RG Podcast. I am your host, Roberto. So good to hear from you all again. Now, with me, I have a fantastic guest. I have known him for a long time, since freshman year of college. He is a wonderful soul, a good friend, and just an amazing human being. My guest today is Conor. Conor, welcome.
Hey, Rob, you build me up too much. I can't compete with that image.
No. You fulfill that image just beautifully all the time. With everything you do, every step of yours is amazing.
Well, I'm very, very, very kind words, and thank you for having me. I'm honored to be a part of this.
Dude, I'm honored that you're even here. Like, it's crazy to think that you're here. And the reason this blows my mind, listeners, is because Conor is from Ohio, from the Cincinnati area specifically. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you just happen to be out here. Yeah. Totally blew my mind when you hit me up. I was like, hey, I'm going to be in the area. Like, whoa, that's a big flight.
Have a little vacation time. Had some time. Yeah. I'm interested in this. It's a little nervous, I'll be honest, being on mic and being on a podcast. But, yeah, it's a good experience. You got to push your boundaries a little bit every once in a while.
Yeah, believe me, I know what you mean when you say nervous on the mic. I am terrified every time I come on. But it always ends up being a lot more fun than nerve-wracking. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we have known each other since college, freshman year, Frosoco. Mm-hmm. That was an interesting time, a fun time. And I remember one of my first impressions of you being like, oh, it's one of these guys who's just like unapologetically polite and kind all the time. And the thing is, that sounds like a compliment, I know. But at the time, in my headspace, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, to me, that didn't make sense at the time.
There's something up with this kid.
Yeah, there's something up with it. It felt insidious to me. Mm-hmm. Like, no one is this kind for no reason. And so, like, I kept, like, extra tabs. Like, I don't know. Everyone seems to like him. Maybe that's what he wants. Everyone's playing into his head. And so I was very suspicious of that. Yeah, well, I know. I was a bit of an asshole back then.
No.
I mean, you know, it's just, that's how I kind of grew up, like realizing and being suspicious of everyone because I had to be.
That isn't intrinsically a bad thing, to be suspicious and to be, you know, looking out for things that seem abnormal. I get that. I definitely understand that. The good news is I'm too socially awkward to be manipulative. So even if I was trying to be kind for nefarious purposes, I just wouldn't be competent enough to do it.
Yeah. No, but like that thought or that idea didn't last too long because as I got to know you more and more, like no matter what I did or said around you, you were still just kind and uplifting and optimistic about everything. And for as many people know, in college, I was very much the person to say the thing I shouldn't be saying, just to like hype up people, be like, oh my God, did Bravo say that? Yeah, I did all the time. And I would say these things around you because I thought to myself, like, even if he is just overly optimistic, usually they hate any bit of like negativity or darkness. So I'm going to say a lot around him and see how he reacts. And it'll show his true colors. But no, you were still, you would laugh and be like, oh, you shouldn't say that.
You boy, you.
Yeah, and we just laugh and have a good time. And I'm like, huh. And then I found myself just like enjoying your company. And I was just like, I guess he's just a sincerely good person. I don't know how that happens, but that's awesome. And yeah, you had this energy about you that I enjoyed. We didn't hang out too much during that time, but every time I hung out with you was always positive and pleasant. I do remember there was one night we were hanging out in your room and just talking. Like it was late night and we're just hanging out. I forgot what we were talking about specifically. I think it was something along the lines of like treading the politically correct culture of like college campuses. And I really thought you would be one of those people who would be like, no, we have to be PC and for the sake of everybody all the time. But no, you presented a more nuanced view, and I found us having things in common in these nuanced views, and I was like, oh, this guy's totally cool. It's my preconceived notions were completely bonkers. It was just really strange. But yeah, I really enjoyed the night because we got to know each other pretty well, and in my head, it really cemented the idea like this is a good person.
Well, I remember that night, and I remember my first impressions of you was, wow, this guy says what he believes. He's unapologetic about it, and he doesn't care if that offends somebody or if that goes against what you're supposed to be saying. He's unapologetically himself, and I really, really respect it. Even when we disagreed on things, and naturally we do. Being honest with who you are and being open about that. To be honest, I wish I was more like that. I definitely keep a lot of things close to the chest, but and especially in a university setting, being an Ohioan coming to California, there's some stigmas there, some things that I needed to be aware of, we'll say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just seeing somebody who, didn't really care. They were going to say what they thought. I really respect that. And, I think that broadly speaking, we should be more sincere about who we are. There's a lot there, and we aren't going to go into that conversation necessarily because that's a very, very challenging subject. But I do remember that night, and, my lasting impression was, wow, he means what he says. You know what you're going to get with him, and damn, that's a good man.
Thank you. No, yeah, all very kind things to say, but in quick summary, I was a bit of an asshole. Like, there were some, what's the bridges I burned with some words I chose to say at times. And at the time, I didn't really care because I didn't believe that I could form so many sincere connections at the time. I thought everyone's putting up a facade, so why should I care what anyone thinks? Now that I'm older and a little wiser, I realized that was the completely wrong approach. Since then, I have talked to some of these people who I haven't talked to in very many years and found myself really enjoying talking to them and connecting with them again, and realized like, wow, why didn't I do this in college? Like, why didn't I be a better human being? But, it's things we learn as we go on.
Well, that's the balance between, just saying what you feel immediately and thinking, should I be feeling this? Is it appropriate for me to be coming from this place? It is very nice when people are just, open and sincere, but if they are sincerely mean, then that gets into a tricky spot as well. So there definitely is a balance there, and I think everybody has been on both sides of that, the giving and the receiving end. Yeah,
I definitely spent a lot of time in that tricky area, gleefully so, which, oh well, you live and learn.
That's right.
Yeah, one thing you didn't mention was, like, we do have our disagreements at a time. That reminded me, like, one of the biggest difference between us, I think, is you're very much self-identified Christian, whereas I'm very much self-identified atheist. And so we have these very different views on things, yet it never bothers me. It doesn't come up because, like, that's not really central to the identity of this relationship that we have, this friendship that we have. But something I am curious about, if you wouldn't mind, like, in your own words, how would you, like, further describe the reason, I guess, strange way to put it, but the reason why. Why is there a relationship that you have with God? Like, what is faith in your own words? You don't have to make a whole thesis about it.
Right.
Quick couple sentences.
Yeah, no, it's
something I'm curious about.
It's a very important question. And I think that what it comes down, well, one of the critical aspects is, I ask myself, what's the point of it? What value is there? And I run into that question a lot. I, trying to understand myself, trying to understand what is morality? What does it mean to be a good person? Where does anything come from? I do action X. What does it ultimately matter? And I think about those sort of things, and that's really where faith really kicks in for me. Now, I'll say that as that's where the application of faith comes in. The foundation of the faith, that comes from a different place. And, I, very strongly believe that a divine being exists, to me, it's, to be honest, it's kind of absurd that would not be the case for me, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But given that question then becomes, well, what is the nature of said divine being? And, in praying and reading and trying to understand, well, what would it actually mean for a divine being to have X characteristics, to, be immortal, to create the world? What does that actually look like? That's really where the foundation of my faith comes. And you're right, I do believe very strongly it really shapes, I like to say that it shapes everything I do. I fall short, as all humans do always. But I try to make it as central to my life and to my direction as possible.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I remember I was raised as a Catholic, so I learned a lot of the central tenets of that whole thing, your relationship with God, Jesus, with Mary and all that. I think it's more of a Catholic thing.
Yeah. We will say I'm an evangelical Protestant, so a lot of the Catholic stuff I have strong disagreements with. Yes. I'm very familiar because my wife was raised Catholic as well, but we'll definitely have differences there.
Of course, absolutely. But yeah, I bring it up because it's like that was the closest I ever had to a relationship with God, and I always was taught that everything we read in the Bible, we learned in church. Like this is a fact, like this happened, and I always took it at face value. I was like, oh, okay, adults are telling me and this makes sense. But I remember the day where that belief that I had started toppling down was the day when I think we were filling out some form for school, like some bureaucratic stuff, like your name, address, name of your parents, their address, blah, blah, blah. And I think there was a part that said, like, if you had a religion or religious preference, something like that. I can't remember what school, because I'm not sure if they're allowed to legally ask that.
I think for Stanford, they did ask that.
Okay. It wasn't Stanford, it was elementary school.
Oh, it was elementary school. Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah. It was around that time. I'm not sure if it was for school or for something else, but there was a form, very official looking form, asking that information. And I thought, like, why is there a space? Isn't everyone just Catholic? Like, no, there's also, like, different types of Christian, too. I was like, oh, okay. Then why is the space so big? It's way bigger than Christian or Catholic. What? And then I forgot who told me. I think it was one of my parents. And they were just like, oh, yeah, some people just don't have a religion. Like, they don't, like, what? What does that mean? Like, oh, they don't really believe in anything. Like, not even, like, any God or anything like that. Like, no. And blew my mind. Like, wait, that's a choice? I was like, oh my God. And then, ironically enough, and I started thinking about all the things like, wait, so people don't, and like, I don't know, it kind of just spiraled from there. I mean, I was a little kid at the time, so nothing I was thinking about was like super profound or like secure or anything like that, but I do remember that. But I will say that even though that slowly started to like topple down in my head, I did meet a lot of really great people during my time, like as a part of that church. Well, first, my mother. She is a very devout Catholic, very, very Catholic woman. Prays all the time, reads the Bible, does rosary stuff. And she's such a wonderful human being. Like, I love her. She is like my emotional rock. Like, I can hug her, I can hold on to her, I can like feel secure with her. And like, she always did a great job with mothering and like, and teaching, things about God and whatnot. But also my, catechism teacher, she was a phenomenal human being as well. Like this older woman, kind of a grandmother energy. I didn't get to grow up with grandparents, so I never got to feel that energy. So I only got to feel it from her, and it was a little bit. And when I got baptized, because I got baptized when I was older, as opposed to being a baby, my mother decided, like, you know what, your catechism teacher should be your godmother, because we didn't really have anyone else. Mm-hmm. We don't keep in close contact with like extended family, because they're off doing their own things.
We won't go there.
And so like this was the closest person that we knew we could trust. And like I'm happy that she's kind of a part of my life. I haven't talked to her in a while actually, but I do remember every time I got to see her, like she was just so warm and loving, and like wow, I know I wouldn't have these experiences if it wasn't for my religious upbringing, religion in general, and so I really still love and appreciate it. Not to sound completely diplomatic, there were times though, of course, every teenager growing up goes through their super edgy phase.
Of course.
And of course, I embraced mine, as most of you know. But I was totally one of those people who was just like, I'm an atheist because I think for myself, and sort of thing. And that kind of bullshit all the time. And yeah, I totally rode that wave so hard. It was so dumb thinking back on it now. Like, I get why, because like this was the new thing. It was fascinating to me. No one else was telling me about this. I learned about it on my own. So I was like, oh wait, there's other people think like this too. And
especially in the early 2000s, you have the new atheist wave. And that was, by definition, a very combative view of atheism. So, that paired very nicely with the edginess that we were hitting right at that time.
Yep. They paired nicely indeed. But yeah, of course, older, wiser, realizing like, oh no, like it's fine. Like, it's my business is my business, your business is your business. As long as we get along, like it doesn't matter. Like that stuff, that's our personal thing. What goes on behind our closed doors, and that's fine. Because I have a lot of very religious friends. Some of them super, super close. Actually, now I think about it, a significant portion, I would say more than half of my closest friends are Christian, some sort of Christian. And I love them to death, all of them. Like, they're all fantastic people. And yeah, whenever I see them being the awesome people that they are, which includes you, it makes me think to myself, like, man, like, this should be the face of like Christianity or like religion. Like, look at these people doing fantastic things, and it's so cool, and I love it. Of course, like 14-year-old me would be like, oh, fuck that, dude. Like, they can be good people without it. Like, no, shut up. We don't think like that anymore. We're adults now. We're adults. But yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yeah, and what it comes down to is, at least from a Christian perspective, I can't speak for the other religions, but from a Christian perspective, what's the two things that we need to do? We need to love God and we need to love others. And it doesn't matter if they're Christian or not. It doesn't matter if they, think the way you do. Me, I want everyone in the world to be Christian because that's what I believe, and I believe that that's the ultimate way to happiness and to a good life. But my love for someone else is conditional upon them being Christian. So, I think it's a challenging balance there to really express that love to other people and unconditional, don't care what you think, don't care what you believe, I love you. But then also say, yeah, but I also want things for you. I want you to, have this thing, this wonderful thing that I have. How do I communicate that best to you so that you can, feel the wonderful things that I feel, have the confidence and the hope that I have. And that's a balance that I have not hit very well, especially in the evangelical tradition, in its very nature and its name. Reaching out to other people and evangelizing is something that is, very much a thing because we say, well, we love other people. Well, what's the greatest way to love other people? To share the gospel with them. Yeah. And I struggle with that aspect. I'm very open about struggling with that. It's very challenging for me to strike that balance between, being authentic and open and saying, hey, this is what I want for you, but not, but not making it come off like I'm judging you for not being with me, or, I, think that you're a lesser person if you don't think like me. That's something that I fear. Maybe that's an unfounded fear, but it's definitely something that I worry about and I struggle with on both sides. I feel like I've swung far on both sides very often in different cases. So that's one of my struggles.
It it happens. It's kind of like if you're someone out on the street corner, you're like, hey, I have this nice thing, and I can share it with many people I want. I'm going to see if I can pass it to strangers. And like, hey, would you like this nice thing that I have? And if they take it, great. Now they have this nice thing too. But if they don't take it, you're like, no problem. I still love you anyways. Have a nice day. And so that's the image I got in my head as you were talking about this, which I love that image. It's fantastic. It's just like, I want to share this nice thing, but if not, that's okay too. My love for you is all the same.
Mm-hmm. And that's really where the challenge comes from a Christian perspective is, what's the consequence of not receiving that? And the consequences from a Christian tradition are pretty clear, and damn, that's terrifying. I don't want that for no one.
Oh yeah.
But, what's the balance? The very critical thing is that you can't, I've actually been thinking and reading a lot about this, is the idea of what does it mean to be able to express your faith? And, where the faith has to come from. It has to come, from your heart. It has to be truly sincere, which means that not only can you not force that upon other people, but also people can't restrict you in your ability to express that as well.
Absolutely.
And, that's a challenge. And it's a very, very tricky dilemma that, happens between individual peoples. It happens in our society, in our political world. Yep. It's hard. There isn't any easy answers with that.
Yeah, no, it's not at all. I don't think with any kind of religious viewpoint, whether it's Christian, Judaism, or atheist, agnostic, like there's challenges with all of them. But like for me, what I think we can do that's the best across the board for everyone is just show love and kindness where you can and when you can, which should be all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you'll encounter some situations where love and kindness will not resolve all the issues.
And it gets very hard.
Yeah, it gets very hard. But yeah, just try to express that love and share it. Make sure people feel better after they've interacted with you. If you can aim for that, strive for that, then you're a good person. And I think that's something we should strive for. Another perk of you being a Christian, though, was your wedding took place in a church, which was very beautiful. I loved it. That service was amazing.
Well, thank you.
In that kind of wedding, it was just like, whoa, it's like in the movies. My poor ass, man. That's how I think. It's like, whoa, it's like in the movies. But no, that church, and that whole service was incredible. But yeah, how long ago was that now? It's like what?
It was a little over a year. Yeah, end of July 28th.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say it's been a year.
I should have that day memorized.
Sorry, Lexi. But no, yeah, it was a fantastic service. I know a lot of us almost ran late because apparently I forgot the name of the church, but there was two of them that had almost exact same name.
Oh yeah.
And so we typed in an Uber, like, oh, you mean this one? We're like, yeah. And we click it, and then it took us to the wrong church. We're like, the wrong one. Where's the right one?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're trying to find it, and yeah, all of your Stanford friends scrambling in the back. As soon as we show up and find a seat, it starts. We're like, oh man,
that was a close one.
Yeah, I just felt like a little embarrassed. Like, ooh. I'm like, whatever, we're here.
I probably should have thought about that because I remember when I was when we chose that church, we chose it just for convenience. It was the closest to the reception area. But there was another Methodist church, Hyde Park Methodist Church, when I was originally looking for it, and I thought, that's a little confusing, but okay, I know which one it is now. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I should put an address or something like that.
Yes, a solid address would have been a little more helpful. Yeah. But hey, we made it. We saw it. We enjoyed it. It was a really, really great time. And it was just to see the union between you and Lexi actually happen under the eyes of each other, of your family, your friends, and of God, of course. And it was just wonderful to be a part of that experience. And Lexi's just such a wonderful girl. Personally, I've only had very few interactions with her, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we talk about each other quite a bit, I think.
You both do, yes.
Yeah.
Which is fun for me being the intermediate there.
Yeah, you're always
because I know
intermediate.
you both very well, and I'm running interference between it, and it's fun. I like it.
Yeah. There's one story I wanted to share. You may not want this story shared.
No, I was actually thinking, if I'm thinking the story you're thinking, then I was probably going to bring it up myself.
It's a funny story. It was during our time in college. Was it freshman year?
It was freshman year, yeah.
Freshman year.
Because freshman year, Lex and I, every Friday night, for reference for our listeners, my wife Lexi, who we've been talking about, she went to Auburn for college. She's the same year as me, but I was in California. We started dating end of high school, so we were long distance for quite a while, which was an adventure. One that I'm very happy is over at this point.
Yeah, you pulled through. Like, not to sound rude, but the odds were literally stacked against you. Like, if you told anyone, like, they're high school sweethearts, they're gonna be together forever, you'd be like, this isn't Hollywood. That's not how this works. But then no, you two pulled through, and like, oh my god, like, it's like almost perfect. It's incredible to see that.
She's pretty special, I gotta say. But the relevant knowledge here then is that because we were long distance, we had to set up regular communication. So every Friday night is when we would Skype, and we'd Skype for 3-4 hours very routinely, almost every single Friday.
Yep, and that they did. And they did that every Friday, including the Friday where my dumbass showed up. So,
Lexi loves this story, by the way. This is one of her favorite stories in the world.
It's a great story. So what's funny about this story is I don't even remember, like, the party that was happening.
I don't either.
I don't remember anything about it. I barely remember this even happening. You're the one that reminded me about it. But essentially, I was going to a party that's happening in the dorm. I think it was one of the lounges. That's usually where people socialize. And I went to grab something from my room, and I had to walk past your room. I think it was on the way back, because I was in a rush, because I had to grab something and bring it back for the party, or else the party was ruined or whatever. And on my way back, I saw that you were in your room, just chilling there. In my eyes, it looked like you were just chilling on your laptop. Of course, you were Skyping with Lexi. And so I very dramatically just, like, ran into his doorway and just, like, grabbed the frame and just looked at you. I was like, what was it? You remember the phrase. Yeah, go for it. What was the phrase I said?
He comes in, he says, Connor, we have a party in the lounge. You have to come, because if you don't come, none of the girls are going to come.
Yes.
Rava did not know I was Skyping with my girlfriend at the time.
Yep. And of course, she heard every word of that. And of course, I immediately left after because, like, hey, I have something to deliver. So I left my man high and dry in this moment.
I had some explaining to
do. Don't worry about him. He's just dumb. Which would have been accurate. What did you say to her?
We had a long conversation, we'll say.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry.
No, it's good. Lex says that you're the only one who would tell her the truth. You're the only one who was really being honest with her. Everyone else is just covering for me.
There you go. I earned that trust by not even looking or talking to her, just shouting a stupid sentence in the air, and bam, landed me in. Oh my god, so funny. And of course, she's gonna be in town soon.
She will.
So hopefully, I'll see her, and we'll actually have like the third or fourth time we're actually talking to each other in person. So that'll be nice to add that. I'm sure we'll talk about this story again.
Oh, I know it'll come up.
All right, so let's move on. So we have a little drink here. It's Buffalo Trace Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Now,
it's good stuff.
It is good stuff. With 43% alcohol per volume. It's not kidding around. You told me before we started, like, you won't notice. I noticed. I noticed. As I said before, bourbon is very unapologetic, very in your face, and this is no exception. Buffalo Trace, if anything, it's like the prime example of this. I'm taking sips of this, and I'm like, woo! That's a drink right there.
Maybe I've just had too much. That's why I'm desensitized.
Perhaps. But there are good flavors in it. Yeah, I'm taking a sip. I'm taking a sip right now.
I will join you.
Oh, good. I'm past that phase where that initial bite is no longer there, which is nice. So I just get the flavor. But yeah, no. If you enjoy bourbon, I would highly recommend Buffalo Trace. It's very tasty. Like, it does what you expect bourbon to do, but a little bit more nuanced. Earlier, I was thinking to myself when I had a sip, almost like a cooked brown sugar taste to it. I guess caramel, but not quite caramel. And caramel is very sweet. It's not that sweet, but it's like there's something going on there. In addition to what you traditionally expect out of a bourbon. Very, very tasty. Very nice color. And I think the packaging is pretty nice.
Yeah, I'm a fan. And for me, because I'm a cheap bastard, it really isn't all that expensive neither. It's, 25, 30 or something like that. Somewhere 25. In that range.
Yeah, I got it for 25.
Within that range, in my opinion, I think this is pretty good value. And
no, absolutely it is.
Me being cheap, good value is really what I'm trying to find.
I mean, it has a cork top, so
it's good.
Yeah, so that's how you know. But what I'm curious about is, why did you recommend Buffalo Trace? Like, what is your personal connection to this?
Well, as I said, it is my go-to drink. If I'm just looking for something to sip, because I'm not going to spend much more money on something that's arguably better. But with this one specifically, when I graduated, I go into the workforce. First few weeks or so on the job, we have a department's event or something like that. We just go to a restaurant, have a nice lunch, have some drinks, things like that. Now, me, I didn't really like beer at the time. I still don't. I'm not overwhelmed by beer, and I don't like wine in the least. So
not same.
If I'm getting something to drink, it's either going to be water or it's going to be whiskey. And me being a red-blooded Ohioan and having family in Kentucky, I have to go with bourbon. And my coworker Warren was there. He was, I don't know how old Warren was, but he was, a senior engineer or something like that. And I remember ordering that, and Warren had ordered the same thing, so it was delivered at the same time. We didn't realize that we had ordered the same thing. And he looked at me, he's like, "Oh, so you drink bourbon, and it's not just for shots. You're actually gonna enjoy this with me." And I was like, "Yep, I sure am." He said, "Okay. You're pretty cool. I like you." And nice. As a fresh out of college kid who was feeling very, very overwhelmed, imposter syndrome to the max at my company and all of that, just, having that support. I doubt Warren remembers this in the least. I'm overwhelmingly confident he doesn't think about this or even remember that this happened. But for me to experience that, for a senior engineer to reach out, oh man, that's nice. That felt huge to me. And so, when I have Buffalo Trace, I think of Warren. I think, I'm sure he's doing well. And, he definitely helped me along, even if he didn't realize it.
That is so cool. Yeah. So what I like about that story is just like, we now have validation bottled. So we want to feel validated by older engineer, Buffalo Trace.
There we go.
That should be their tagline. Senior engineer validates you. That should be the commercial. Just the fresh out of college kid take a little sip of this, and just...
I'd buy it if I saw that commercial.
Especially if it's you in it.
That's right.
I'd watch that commercial all the time. I'd be one of those people who watches it 30 times on YouTube and be like,
break the repeat button.
Exactly. No, yeah, it's really good. I definitely enjoy whiskeys. I think I've mentioned that before on this podcast. I've definitely mentioned to a lot of friends. But yeah, I'm always in the market for trying a new whiskey. I've had, American, I've had Scotch, I've had Canadian whiskey, I've had blends, I've had peaty whiskeys, I've had sherry cask whiskeys, I've had... did I mention Japanese already?
No, I'm very curious about the Japanese ones. Yeah. I haven't had any of them. And I do like the Irish ones. Those are good.
Yeah, the Irish as well. Yeah. But like I said, I have a Japanese whiskey. We'll try it after the podcast.
All right.
And don't worry, listeners. I'll definitely talk about that in some future episode because I love that thing. I love it so much. But anyways, yeah, no, it's really cool. I love how different the flavor profile of whiskey is compared to like almost anything else. Like, I went from, someone who never drank, so only ate like, normal foods and drank like juice and soda. And you sip this and you're like, why does it taste like wood? And why do I like it?
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's just super tasty. Like, oh, smoke. Tasting smoke, but I'm really enjoying it.
Right.
Like, it doesn't feel like I'm breathing in like a bonfire smoke. It feels like I'm tasting this like, I don't know, charred liquid, if that makes any sense. But it's so pleasant. It's so tasty. Like, I don't even know how to explain it or why. I just know that I do like it, and I'm going to keep drinking it. Every time I go to Eureka, like, I order like a whiskey platter because I keep wanting to try different whiskeys and find out like which ones I like.
Is that place that you and I went
Yes.
in Mountain View, I think it is?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's some good stuff.
Yep. It was a fantastic place. I actually went recently with some friends. It was a good time. I ordered a beer that time because I was like, you know what? Expand your horizons. Stop drinking just whiskey. Trying to do that. I'm trying to do that thing where I'm expanding my horizons.
And maybe not look quite as much like an alcoholic in public. That was my other fear in ordering a whiskey with Warren, was that, all these other people are choosing beer. I don't like beer. If I choose whiskey, are they going to think, oh, he's fresh out of college? He's now we call him an alcoholic.
I wouldn't be so worried if you were ordering like, it's the first drink of the night. I'd be worried if you're ordering your 6th whiskey.
Mhm.
Neat. And you weren't having anything else.
Yeah.
Then I was worried about
you
your
got
image.
some issues.
Yeah, there's definitely something else going on. But yeah, no, this is great stuff. So thank you for the recommendation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for buying.
Of course, absolutely. But with that said, let's just jump into the music. So
All right.
the album you recommended to me was an album by the Avett Brothers. Avett?
Avett.
My bad. Avett Brothers. Emotionalism. This was a 2007?
Yeah, 7.
2007 album. And for those of you who don't know the Avett Brothers, they're like folk rock. Would that be fair?
Yeah, they're a little hard to pin down, because they...
Especially album by album.
Yeah, especially album by album. They draw from a very, very broad spectrum. Folk rock is probably the best application. People who aren't familiar with them probably will just say, oh, that's just straight bluegrass. It's not really straight bluegrass, but it does have that aspect. It does have the, not heavy metal, but hard rock aspects to it. Some of those songs really do shine a little bit, especially with their most recent album. Some electronic feels as well.
Oh, okay.
But in their roots rock, folk rock, Americana, somewhere in that general area.
Yeah. So I was doing research for them because I research every artist that's recommended to me. A couple things caught my eye. The reason I mentioned folk in the first place was because I saw that they almost regularly place within the folk charts. And so I'm like, okay, so they're like folk rock. And I saw that term thrown around. So I was like, okay, so that's kind of the broader genre that they're in, at least. But something that tripped me up was when I was reading that first sentence on Wikipedia, like what genres they do. Like, oh yeah, folk, bluegrass, and Americana. But one of them was punk. And I'm like, what?
Yep. That's so weird. A bluegrass punk fusion? It seems like it can't really be done.
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about? But I will have to find the album that has stronger punk influences because I was just thrown away. I was just like, or blown away, not thrown away. But yeah, it was just so crazy thing. Anyway, so before I did my first lesson, I did some other research, of course, trying to look into it. One thing I did see before I listened to it was something that really impressed me, that these guys weren't really signed to a big label at this point for this album. It was actually this album that got the attention of big labels. American Records, I believe.
Couldn't say. That sounds right, though.
Yeah. So American Records, and it got the attention of the producer, Rick Rubin. Now, if you don't know who Rick Rubin is, he is just a huge producer that produces for anyone that's somebody. Like, if he sees potential in you and wants to produce for you, that means you made it, like, bar none. This guy has produced, I believe, for the Beatles at some point. I believe, like, other people around that genre as well at that time. But when I first heard about him, it's because he was producing for Kanye West.
Oh, so really? I did not know that.
Huge, like,
wow.
range.
Yeah, that's all over the place.
Yeah. I saw this little interview he did. Apparently, he does a lot of production in this tiny trailer that's in his backyard. And
That's
like
legendary.
Yeah, and he's walking around barefoot, white t-shirt, denim shorts, huge beard, and he just produces there. And like he'll be in like his little studio is this thing. I mean, he has other like studios around his property, of course, but he does a lot of stuff in there. But he mentioned like, oh yeah, I produced Kanye West album, a Yeezus in here, right here. And I'm like, what a pleasant view to have. You're surrounded by flowers and plants to produce this album that's so like dark and like minimalistic and crazy. I was like, that's so insane. But anyways, so when I saw the name Rick Rubin pop up, the Avett Brothers, and like he was like, oh, I'll produce your next album or be the executive producer for your next album, I was just like, oh shit, I have been sleeping on these guys clearly, because if Rick Rubin says they're good, then they're amazing.
Mm-hmm. And their next album, I Am Loving You, is the next album that they have. It's definitely more, we'll say, refined than Emotionalism. You can tell his influence. He definitely smooths some of their rougher edges out. And it's a wonderful album as well. Actually, my favorite song, Kick Drum Heart, is on that one.
Okay.
So, I recommend that to our listeners as well.
Okay.
Check that one out as well.
I'll have to check it out as well, because I haven't checked out anything else. I've just been listening to this one. But yeah, let's just jump into it. So, as I mentioned, like I knew it was folk coming in, and I was like, okay, so I'm not gonna have too many things that I'll probably connect to, but like I'll still appreciate it and try to find things that I like, as I do with every album that I recommended that isn't typically stuff I listen to.
Because this is a little bit it's beyond what you normally listen to, we'll say.
Absolutely. But then I saw the title of the first track, Die, Die, Die. And I was like, hold on, what? And I listened to it, and I'm just like, huh. At first, it paints like general imagery of, what was that, a girl pushing against the sky or something like that.
Yeah, just fighting with mortality.
Yeah. And at first, I only heard that. I took it at literal face value. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But then the song goes on. I realize what it's trying to say, and I'm like, huh. I really like this. Mm-hmm. Like, holy moly. And just like the whole idea with this album is so great. As I mentioned to you before, the first third of the album, like, I am in love with. I love it. Like, the themes that go on there, crazy. I was like, how is this in a folk song? Like, how is this folk? Like, it's so dark. You wouldn't want to play this to kids. This is so sad and like stressful, and I love it for that reason.
They definitely draw very strongly from the traditional Appalachian morbid ballads or murder ballads and things like that. There isn't any actual murder in this album that I can think of, but those very dark, very serious things are absolutely coming to a head here.
Yeah. So tell me, what do you think of that first track?
It's a good one. What's funny is that to me it seems very melodic. You're cruising along. If you aren't actually paying attention to the lyrics, you think it's kind of like a upbeat. I'll just bob my head walking down the street to this one, and then you actually look at that and you think, that's a lot more darker than what the music is saying. And you do see this a lot in the album, where there is that conflict between really, really peppy songs and music and instrumentation and very serious and, macabre subject matter in some cases. They really like playing on that contrast. And I actually very much like that contrast.
So do I. As the cool kids say, as I was listening to like the first third of the album, I was like, how come this album is attacking me? Like, it is saying all these things that are hit way too close to home, and I'm like, what is going on? I thought this would be about like munching on wheatgrass and making moonshine and having a fun little
strumming the banjo.
Yeah, strumming banjo, and I'd want to drink some moonshine and dance along in my denim overalls. But no, I'm just sitting there listening to it. I'm just like, I'm past this, right? Like, I have grown from here, right? Oh man, all these things that I haven't thought about in a while. I'm like, ooh. I think it was this song where I think the major themes of it I really liked was like, the more you try to push against your fate and like what's going to become of your life, you'll eventually just end up so alone because you're just running from it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The theme they touch on a little more a couple songs later, but this one had painted such an interesting imagery, which sounds like, even when I listen to the lyrics, at first it sounds a little optimistic, like, oh, she's pushing against the sky, oh, how cute, and like lighthearted, it's a sunny day. But then you realize, like, no, like, it's like the sky's falling on her and she is trying to stop it and she can't.
Mm-hmm.
No one can. You can't. And the more you push, the more alone you'll end up. And I'm just like, all right, this is a lot.
Yeah, then this similar theme comes up. I forget where in the album it is, but The Way to Lies is a similar concept where
that was what I was referencing.
You're actively running, fleeing town, going, all sorts of places, trying to hide your past. But since your past is intimately tied to who you are, you're never really going to be able to escape that because it's always coming with you. It's the baggage that you got in your heart. And, a similar concept. It's sort of interesting with that one. That's a timeless idea that you can't escape your past. You can only learn from it and blah, blah, blah. Mufasa coming down and talking to Simba or something like that. But they do twist that. I won't say twist it. They put an interesting spin on it to make it feel very modern. And anymore in our day and age with cell phones and the internet and a quick Google search finds your entire history, it's even more apparent now that you aren't gonna be able to run from the past and from what you have done.
And I really like that song.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's move on to the next one. Shame. So what do you think of Shame?
Oh, Shame is actually my favorite on this. Well, this and Pretty Girl from Chile are my two favorites, but I do really, really like Shame. This is the one that I sing a lot on my way to work. And I think the bit that I like about it is, the first chorus verse, it passes through that. And, it's building up. You feel this emotion of shame. Unsurprisingly, the lyrical content is about guilt for effectively deceiving somebody in a relationship that you pretended to be more into it than you actually were. And so now you can't really deliver on what you've been promising. That is building up throughout the song. But then it hits the bridge. And that's at max emotion in the song. The instruments are the loudest. And if anything, it sort of does feel a bit punky in this bit right here on that bridge. Oh. The first half is just explaining the history of it all. But then it pivots on that blue note midway through. I forget the exact lyric, but now I'm out and I have seen I'm blanking on the exact lyric. But it's something about, coming to your senses, falling out of this artificial world you created and coming into reality and realizing just how bad that was and how cruel that was to someone else. And now all that overwhelming shame and guilt is, weighing down on you. And they really do hit on the physical feeling of shame. It's not just a conceptual thing. Oh, that was wrong of me to do. It really is something you feel in your gut and on your shoulders and in your chest. And they ride on that a lot. They really paint that physical response to shame very strongly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have the part in the chorus where at the end of it, he's begging for someone to remove that shame. Like, he's like on his hands and he's like, please take this off. I cannot deal with it. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. To me, when I was listening to it, I thought a little more broadly about it. Just thinking about like when this singer like said something to someone that they really cared for and loved for, and that really, really hurt them, and realizing the consequence of that and like the entirety of it and all the shame that comes with it. Yeah, very much have my own personal experience with it. If y'all heard the episode I had with Renata, we had a story pretty much about that, of me messing up and saying something terrible. And yeah, like that shame like weighs you down so much. Yeah. So when I was listening to this, I was just like, all right, yeah, I remember. Please don't remind me anymore. It's pretty crazy. Luckily, I've, of course, personally moved on from it. Like we've made amends. But yeah, no, it kind of reminds you like how dark and heavy it can all really feel.
Yeah, it really is a very visceral feeling. It's not an intellectual feeling. When you genuinely and truly feel that shame, you know it, and you're not going to be able to forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the next one is Paranoia in B major. Paranoia. I thought this was a pretty good song. I mean, I'm going to say that for every song in the first third. Every first 5 or 6 songs, I'm going to say that. But yeah, I just love, like, everyone has these feelings, of course, like the feelings of, like, insecurity, no one likes me, or everyone hates me sort of thing. Talking about, like, everywhere he goes, whether it's just a party with a bunch of strangers or with his friends, he feels not welcome. And yeah, I've been there. It's not a great feeling.
And it's a very unreliable narrator too. You know, you're listening to it and you're thinking, that's probably not what's really happening here, but that's really what's going into his head. And, you know, it's kind of sabotaging his relationship with the woman he's talking about, with his friends.
Yes.
You know, it really is messing with things. And one of the funny things that I always think about with this song is that, you know, this is Paranoia in B flat major. Well, that means that there are 11 other varieties of Paranoia for C sharp and D flat and all of that. There's a lot of different ways that paranoia can come up. Lots of different faces for it.
So I like what you said about the unreliable narrator, because for me, I always have trouble identifying it, but then once it's identified for me, like it makes sense. I mean, you look at the title of the song and you can kind of spoils it for you. Paranoia, like these things aren't actually going on, but he thinks they're going on, and it's real to him. And it's like, yeah, totally get it. All right, we'll move on to the next one.
Sounds good.
All right, The Weight of Lies. This one. God, just so good. So it has very similar themes to Die Die Die. But I think it was more explicit.
It was,
and like very direct. Like, no, this is like the emotion we're talking about. Like this one specifically, no imagery. It's just
this one they aren't trying to be pretty. They're being straight up with you.
Very direct.
This is what's happening here,
which I like. I really like that.
And they do that throughout the album, where they may flirt with some more literary things about of love and hate is probably the clearest example of that. But then they'll come through and they'll say, let's sit down, let's talk openly and directly about it here. And this is one of their direct songs.
Absolutely. So I really liked, obviously, the chorus, but like that first, what do you call it? Like stanza, I guess, the first few lines. I'm just going to read them off real quick. Disappear from your hometown. Go and find the people that you know. Show them all of your good parts. Beat down. Or beat town? Or the beat down? Google's saying beat down. I thought it was beat town.
I thought it was leave town.
Okay, it might be leave town. For some reason, I looked up some lyrics. They were just wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so it might be just leave town.
Either way.
Okay.
The meaning is still the same.
Unreliable device. So,
unreliable
town.
Narrator, unreliable lyrics.
Right. So, okay, leave town when the bad ones start to show. Which I was just like, fuck. Again, feeling personally attacked right now. And, like, yeah. Personal experience. Like, I spend as little time as I can in my hometown. For a myriad of reasons. Not all bad ones. But, I see that and trying to like fit into this new place, like when I moved to Stanford, and doing my best, and then as soon as I detect like, oh shit, like these new people, a couple new people saw a part of me they didn't like, I should never talk to them again, so that
because that's all they're going to see, and that's what they're just going to fixate on. That's the story that's going through your head.
Yep, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy and a feeding, like a positive feedback loop that goes on in my head every time that happens. and I hated it. So when I saw that, listened to that part, I'm like, all right, can we not? It's too much. But yeah, no. What did you think?
Yeah, I enjoy it. The bit in the second verse stanza where it's talking about drawing that crowd, the crowd that's so excited and has their hopes up. They're so eager for someone with all these wonderful traits and characteristics, and then how devastating it is for that crowd then to be let down when you're trying to hide that, when you're trying to cover up those bad things. To me, it really emphasized that hiding that stuff isn't going to work. First of all, it's going to come up, and second of all, if you are open and honest about those weaknesses, about your faults and your flaws and failures, then you're more likely to be able to work with people, and there's not going to be that their expectations were dashed. That's not going to happen because you're just being open with them. You're being honest, saying, okay, I know that this is a weak point for me. I know I'm not going to do this very well. I'm working on it. Let's move forward together. And I think that's a really valuable lesson. Definitely for me, as mentioned, imposter syndrome definitely is a thing that I have sometimes. And so, I need to remind myself, back off a bit. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to pretend that you're 1,000 times better than you actually are, because you're not, and you won't ever be able to meet that standard that you're trying to make for yourself. So be open about that. Recognize what you are, recognize your weaknesses, move forward and work on improving them. Yeah,
for sure. I really love the chorus. I want to read the whole chorus, but I'm going to make it concise real quick. Basically, it just says, so the song is The Weight of Lies. And of course it says it'll weigh you down and it'll follow you around every town because nothing that happens here doesn't happen there. So it's like, yeah, the negative thing that happened because of your flaws that happened in either your hometown or the previous town, it's going to happen again because you still have those flaws. You're still running from the weight of your lies. But I really like the line where he says, when you run, make sure you run. And so it's like, obviously not the best advice, but I could totally see like that voice in my head telling me that, like, run and make sure you go really, really far this time and avoid everything.
Yeah, last time you didn't go far enough. You really got to book it this time.
Yeah, like just leave everything behind. But it does have that little optimistic note toward the end. Where was it? Oh yeah, make sure you're running to something and not just away. So
right,
as you mentioned before. So it was a nice little twin towards the end and gave me a little more like a little optimistic like hope towards the end. I'm like, okay, yeah, good. It's not all bad news. It's some good news in here too, and I really did appreciate that. All right, next song, Will You Return? Now this is one of the songs where I didn't have as close a connection to as the others. From what I remember, this was like a typical like bar love song, I guess it was. Just like, hey, pretty girl, here's the bar. Will we ever see each other again? I was trying to like interpret metaphors off of it, but I realized I might be reading too much into it. So I figured I'll let you take the lead on this one, and let's talk about it.
Well, by and large, it is definitely one of the more straightforward songs. Again, it's very energetic, even in comparison to some of the other ones that they absolutely have. The interesting bit that I saw there was, the girl is coming to him in this situation, not he's coming to her. And simultaneously, he doesn't want her to be there because they are saying, okay, that's fine. Let's go. Bye. See ya. But then he's saying, maybe you come back again. Are you going to come back? I hope you do. But I can't really say. So there is some tension there about, he's not really initiating anything, but he's hoping she does it instead. So as a whole, it's a pretty straightforward song. I don't really think that there's too much more.
I was reading into it like crazy. I was like listening to all these other songs, and so the sudden shift in like theme in this song threw me off. And I was like, wait, what does this mean? And literally at one point, what I thought it was about was him like like the girl represented a metaphor of like life and a passion for it. And to him it was like constantly drifting away, and he was like, and he couldn't get it himself. It had to come to him. And like, did he still have that passion to live? Only if she came back. And,
I see.
And if he didn't, that would be very bad news for him. But then after thinking about it for a while, I was like, no, okay, this might just be like a normal song.
Right,
like,
yeah.
But
they're allowed to have one or two of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's nice.
It is a bit jarring, though, sandwiched between
The Weight of Lies
and the ballad. Yeah. So it's easy to think, there must be something there. Maybe there is. Maybe I'm missing it.
Yeah, but who knows?
Who knows?
But
I guess Seth knows. But
he knows. Yeah, but it's nice to like hear a song about a woman initiating things, because boy howdy, but I like that. But
I will give a shout out to my wife because she initiated. I will give her the credit there.
Way to go, Lexi. Cuff him. All right, so let's hit up the Ballad of Love and Hate. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was this like the big single of the album at the time?
Ooh, that I actually don't know. It might have been. Okay. It definitely is one of the more talked about songs on the album. And it does seem that people either, in reading a little bit about it, it seems that people either have, it seems very polarized. And people either love it, think it's incredible, or they're like, it's kind of ham-handed and a little too obvious. I'm maybe more on the side of I can leave it, but I absolutely sympathize with the people that are like really, really crazy about it. One of my best friends, this is his favorite song, and we talk about it a lot.
Okay, I like this song. It wasn't my favorite, but I absolutely like put it on like the list of songs that I really liked in this album. This is one of them. Just the imagery, the storytelling that's going on. It's really nice. The Ballad of Love and Hate just tells like a quick little love story between love and hate. But yeah, it's just so funny. Like, you know, when I listen to these songs, imagery is playing in my head, and whenever I think of love, I think of like this beautiful, elegant, like blonde woman in like a sundress, just enjoying herself. And when I think of hate, think of this like tall. I don't want to say tall, dark, and handsome, because it has its own meaning, but like tall, dark, and brooding kind of person. And like the imagery paints of like what hate is up to. And after a while, I realized I was imagining just myself.
Oh no! Oh no, Robbo!
Like, wait a minute!
Oh no!
Hold on, I'm not hate. I don't embody it. Do I?
No! Don't go there.
But no, yeah. Again, reading into it too much. It's just a nice little song. I do like how it ends. It's very cute. So again, like having these like dark songs, but then like in the end, like,
there's that hope that's coming at the end.
Hope.
When hate is drunk driving. In the metaphor.
He drives home drunk.
He's not just a little tipsy. He's all over the place.
Literally screaming in his driveway.
And love is just sitting there.
Yeah, and love is just sitting inside. Just
I knew you were gonna come. Here I am. I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Let's make this work.
Yeah.
And that is cute. That is an uplifting end.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very cute. Alright, so as mentioned before, the first third of the album was something that I was jamming with really, really hard. The rest of them, not so much. Not to say I didn't like them. Just there wasn't that immediate connection I felt with the other songs.
I agree. I think it does fade a little bit on the back end.
Yeah. So I figured for the rest of it, I'll let you take the lead on it. I might add a couple of notes. I know you mentioned Pretty Girl from Chile was a song you really liked. The ending of that was interesting, but we'll get to there. So, Selena.
Yeah, that one, it's more of a straightforward, rock song. You want to hit up all the places and towns we've been. They're traveling bands, places in Kansas and in Ohio and I forget the other places. I think Massachusetts, Carolina, Indianapolis.
Oh, this is the tour song, right?
That's right. Yep. It's their tour song. And, it has its merits. It's something that you like singing along in the car, but I didn't really think that it had too awful much deeper meaning than that. It's a fun song though. I think in the end it kind of drags a little bit, where it just gets, very, very slow and sort of fades out. So it's not my favorite, but I still enjoy it.
It's a nice little song. Yeah.
The Pretty Girl from Chile is my favorite though, and
Let's
I think
talk about it.
the reason it's my favorite, I actually don't think I've mentioned it yet on the podcast, but I am less, when I listen to music, broadly speaking, I focus less on the lyrics and more on the instrumentation and the things. And there isn't a song on the album that has more layers than Pretty Girl from Chile, if nothing else, because it has, 4 acts almost in the song, where it starts at a banjo and a, picked guitar, then into a more, rock and roll, almost a Hispanic, like Latin feel.
Yep, banda. Very banda feel to it.
Is that what it is? Okay. Mm-hmm. And then the really hard rock, slamming the guitar toward the end. And the voicemail, of course. Yeah, and the voicemail was interesting. Because
what the song is about, just to give a quick summary, is, he talks about a pretty girl from Chile that he had met and had a fling with before, and how much he feels like, I guess, guilt, because he feels like he abandoned her, like he like left her behind, even though he thinks about her often and really enjoyed his time with her.
She wanted more from a relationship than he was really ready to give. They were just at different places, and so it wasn't going to work out for him.
Yeah.
But there is that guilt of, oh, maybe I should be where you are here, but he's not. And you can't fake that, as talked about in previous songs. You can't fake that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So, but there, even still, when you're being honest and you aren't trying to fake that, there still is this, man, am I really making the right move here? There still is that guilt, I guess, is probably the best word for it.
Yeah. But you mentioned that there's that voicemail part, and the voicemail is from the pretty girl from Chile.
Talking about the song.
Yeah, because apparently what was his name again?
Seth, I think it's Seth and Scott.
Seth and Scott. Well, one of them sent the lyrics to her, and like she read it over and kind of responded to him in this voicemail, and she was just saying like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Like, you didn't abandon me. Like, I get it. Like, it was just different times, and she was like totally cool about it. Like, she was totally like, oh yeah, you don't have to worry about it. It's totally fine. I'm actually doing really good myself right now, so I'm all set. Like,
yeah, don't feel guilty about this one. Yeah. Let it go. I hope you're gonna be good, like I am.
I'm good, so like you go be good, and so it's all good. And of course, then like the beat switch up. There was a couple of them that really threw me off. I was like, whoa. I thought like the folk music, and now I'm listening to like banda and like salsa influenced music, and I'm like, what is going on? This is a whirlwind, but it's really cool. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that one is my favorite, and even within each category, I think there's a good amount of musical layers there. So you get that, and then you put in 3 separate acts. Yeah, there's a lot happening there. So it's definitely my favorite.
Yeah, it's definitely a really good one. All right. Next one is All My Mistakes.
This one is, for me, again, the instrumentation I think is very good on this one. But, I think it's a pretty straightforward, question of, this is, what I have done. This is what has led me here. I do think that, the interesting bit on this one is that the author is saying, yeah, I messed up. I did some stuff that is objectively wrong, that I shouldn't have done, that, really screwed some things up, caused a lot of pain. But you know what? It got me to where I am right now, and I'm happy with where I am right now. And in order to not, if I were to change those things, I'm not going to be where I am now. So, I'm going to take it in stride. I'm going to accept it for what it is. Yeah. And that's something that it's something that Lex and I actually talk about a decent amount, because we both make mistakes. We both made some pretty serious mistakes, and you take a magic wand, you say, oh yeah, I don't ever want to make mistakes, because mistakes are bad. Let's not do bad things. But you are the sum of your good decisions and your bad decisions, and if where you're standing right now you're happy with, then you have to accept that, the past is the past. It's a part of me. let's move forward with that knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good lesson to have. Or it kind of reminds me of the Kanye song. I am blanking on its title. It's one of his early songs, so it's early Kanye. So a lot of people liked early Kanye. I'm forgetting the song title, but the lyric goes, I think it's part of the hook. Everything that I'm not made me everything that I am.
Mm-hmm.
So like all of his shortcomings, all the things that he should be, but he's not, is like all together that still makes up who he is,
right?
As a person. But yeah, it's a nice little lesson. All right, the next one was Living of Love, which I enjoyed some of the imagery on this one. There was some really good stuff. I think especially towards the end, it was some good stuff. What did you think?
To be honest, I'm forgetting about this one.
No worries.
I recommended it, but no, I'm forgetting about this one.
Yeah, no worries. So from what I remember, basically kind of telling you to, like, when things get rough and when you find like it hard to push forward and find a reason to do anything, like live for love, like to give that even when things are hard and a lot of disappointments and et cetera, et cetera. But toward the end, he has this thing where he says, with Lucifer beneath you and God above, if either one of them asks you what you're living of, say love. Say for me, love. So he's saying to someone he loves, like, yeah, this is difficult. Life gets difficult sometimes, but like we have this love for each other, but also love in general. And so, you find it hard to live for anything, live of love. And so I thought that was pretty cute.
I feel it.
Yeah. All right, next one. I Would Be Sad. It's funny. It's just like this song felt the most sassy. I'm not sure if that was the intent. So he says, I would be sad instead of like, I am sad or I will be sad.
Oh,
like,
interesting. Okay.
Like, I would be sad, but I'm not.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, oh, all right. But the funny thing is, I don't remember much more about it than that.
Okay. I read it differently. I read it almost as the companion piece to Pretty Girl from Chile, but talking about it from the pretty girl's perspective. The one who someone else left them, and now there's those feelings that, oh well, I really wanted this, they didn't want it. What now? Maybe, and in point of time, they haven't yet left, but he's really, really hoping that she doesn't leave. There is a reference in this song to a previous song that they did. If It's the Beaches is a previous song on a different album.
Okay, different album.
And that one is, the imagery there is someone like pleading. Someone is like, has their suitcase and is walking out the door, and they're like pleading, no, please stay. I will do anything for you. That's the image of that song. And so in this song, when it's pulling that in, that's where I'm getting this idea of, they haven't necessarily left, but hey, if you were going to do this, I'm going to be on my knees begging you not to leave.
Okay.
But it's a fun song though.
Yeah.
And it can be very, very straightforward as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a little more stripped down, I would say, than some of the other ones. A little more, I'm not sure if acoustic is the right word, but the instrumentation is just far more straightforward, I would say, than in the other ones.
I think the line that really captures the whole song in essence is the line that says, well, my dad told me, one day, son, this girl will think of what she's done, and hurting you will be the first of many more regrets to come. And so, yeah, right now, maybe the author at the beginning of the song does feel sad and remorseful. Like, oh, she's gone, I lost the opportunity. But then toward the end, he has his father come in and be like, nah, like, you're doing fine, so don't actually feel sad. Like, only acknowledge the fact that you would be sad, but you're not. It feels like it's a very self-empowering song. It was my interpretation of it. It's usually a theme you see, or maybe my limited experience at least, you see with like female singers writing this, like, oh, you left me, but I'm going to stay strong anyway.
Right, yeah.
Girl power and all that. But then you see it in this one, it's like, oh, okay. It's nice to see a man say this.
Yeah, I guess it is a little less common to hear that from a man's voice as opposed to a woman. I can think of like 5 women singers who have had a similar song, but
yeah,
it does sell. I'm kind of thinking, what guys do that? I think the Beatles maybe had one, but I can't immediately name it, so that sort of proves the point.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next one. Pretty Girl from San Diego. I will say this one is my least favorite song on the album. When I heard this, I was like, what happened? This song is like nearly an hour long, but there are also bonus tracks. Did you listen to the bonus tracks?
I did listen to the bonus tracks.
Okay, so it's over an hour long with the bonus track.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they have to include this one? It just reiterates on an idea that already exists in the album, earlier in the album, but it executes it way worse in so many ways. The writing is like, but the biggest sin of this song is the instrumentation. Like, oh my god, listening to this, I'm like, what? Because like, Pretty Girl from San Diego, it's talking about San Diego, the city.
Mm-hmm.
And the music you hear, like, it sounds like they're trying to make music that kind of sounds like San Diego, but completely misses the mark.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they've seen San Diego only in like movies, like rom-com movies, and like, oh yeah, play these sounds. That's San Diego. I don't know how to like describe it exactly. So if you're listening to this, I highly recommend listening to Pretty Girl from San Diego and just being like, wow. Especially if you've lived or been in San Diego or in any coastal California city, really. You listen to this, you'll be like, what the fuck is going on? What is this?
Yeah, you might be biased being, 30 minutes outside of San Diego or something like that? I forget exactly.
Yeah, back in my hometown. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I don't disagree, though. I do think that this is the weakest song on the album. I agree with that. Especially the ending. The ending doesn't do anything. Or it's just the chanting at the end. Yeah, it just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, it's just... I was just taken so aback because I'm like, they've proven they can write and make good music. What happened here? Like, did some like higher up was just like, you gotta write a song about this place and blah blah blah, it makes money and our data shows this, or the boys in marketing say this.
The San Diego girls will really love this one.
Yeah, it's like if you put their name or the name of the city in it, it'll sell. And it's
this one is skippable. I agree.
Yeah. If you're gonna add this album to a playlist, just get rid of that song. Sorry, Avett Brothers. I'm sure you're doing fine otherwise, but oh god. Anyways, let's go to the next one. Go to Sleep. I like Go to Sleep.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting. Just the imagery of like someone who is like survived a bar fight. They're walking. I'm not sure specifically if they're walking home or they're just walking somewhere aimlessly. But they're bloody, they're bruised, and kind of just reminiscing on all that and saying like, all right, just sleep it off. Like, it's been a crazy night, just sleep it off.
It does sort of seem like a song that you could play instead of closing time at the end of the bar, and you'd have everyone at the bar singing along with it.
Yes,
very
absolutely.
Singable. It feels better when there's more people singing with you.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, it totally makes sense. Like, if everyone in the bar knew that song, this is a song you'd be singing for sure. It's a great song. Just a great imagery, and the mood of it is super nice. All right, so the last on the bass album is Hand Me Down Tune. This is before the bonus tracks. Hand Me Down Tune. What did you think?
It was fine. It didn't necessarily do anything for me. It's very metaphorical.
Yeah.
It kind of lost me. I don't really know what the metaphor was or what the meaning was. But, his voice is beautiful in this one. I will say that.
Yeah. To me, the metaphor I got from it was just, he's just trying to tell you, the listener, like sure, you can be inspired by the music I make, but when you're making it, like, don't just be like a copy. And he's not saying that to be like egotistical, like, don't just copy me. It's more like, you can do way better. What I'm making right now is pretty good for my time, but by the time you're making your own music, you can make something way, way better. Don't just use this hand-me-down tune. Innovate. Make something amazing. And so he's trying to push for something better. Like, sure, at one point he had a dream of like, it was beautiful and amazing, and it was. And he made it, and it was good. But now, over time, especially now, it's 2019, it's 12 years later, over 12 years later. This tune is now just a hand-me-down tune. The sound of Emotionalism is a hand-me-down. You don't want to copy Emotionalism anymore. No one should be copying that because it's outdated. You mentioned one of their newer albums had electronic in it, which when you mentioned that
yeah, it seems you just listen to Emotionalism and you think there's no way.
Yeah, there's no way.
Absolutely
it doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
But it makes sense because they're trying to innovate their sound and trying to make it better. Because Emotionalism, great album, but I wouldn't want them to make it again. There shouldn't be an Emotionalism 2. Never. It should just be what they're making and innovating from now on. And I think that's a very important thing of any musician. Like, if you want to be relevant and a really good musician, like known as one of the greats for decades to come, you have to innovate your sound with every album. No two albums can sound the same. If you do, that's a setback. And which is why I admire a lot of artists who do that. Of course, the one example that I say all the time that everyone knows about, Kanye.
Yep.
Every album of his is very, very different sounding. No two albums sound the same at all. They all different subgenres that sprout different subgenres from there and there and there. And I think that's why he's still mainstream, because he inspires and creates new sounds. They're not all successful all the time, but there is at least, like, within the single or a couple tracks, you hear and you go like, wow, this sound is really, really good. Hell, oftentimes it might be ahead of its time, and people will pan it, be like, oh, this sucks. But then, 5 years later, people go like, actually, this is a really good sound. We just didn't know at the time. And so I think the Hand-Me-Down tune is trying to tell you that lesson. Like, hey, make sure you're constantly innovating and changing. Don't be me, be better.
That almost sounds like a segue to the next album that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about the bonus tracks, or you want to skip over them?
We can skip over them, though.
Okay. We'll skip over them just because, one, time, but also more importantly, they're very different in theme. Very, very different. Like, they don't really fit within the album. Sure, there's some...
Especially Tales of Coming News. That one is very, very different from everything else.
I mean, still good songs. I just don't expect it's a lost chapter of Emotionalism. It's more like, this is some other songs they made during that time. Their theme's a little different. Still worth listening.
They made it as a bonus, intentionally.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, but yeah, speaking of that segue, so the album I recommended to you was Kanye West's latest solo album, Ye, which was released last summer. A little background about this album is this album was one in a series of 5 albums that Kanye released that summer.
It was 5? Oh, wow.
Known as his Wyoming projects. So he was in Wyoming on a ranch, just producing. He wanted to get away from the clutter of life, and he made it. And
that's the album cover, Jackson Hole.
Yes. You got it. Okay, yeah. Very good. Yeah, the Jackson Hole is on the cover of the album. It's a very nice picture. They say that that picture was taken on the way to the listening party at the property. So he was just walking over and he looked at the mountain, like, oh, looks pretty good.
It sounds like Kanye.
Yeah. And then he's like, let's just put some writing on it and then put it up. But one thing I do want to mention, so yeah, it was 5 albums, but it wasn't 5 solo albums. He produced 5 albums. One of them was a solo album, Yay. He also released that collab album, Kid See Ghosts, with Kid Cudi. And he produced 3 other albums for the other artists. He made one for Pusha T called Daytona, which I really like that album. It's really good. He made one for Nas, known as Nasir. And the last one for Tiana Taylor. The album's called Keep the Same Energy. So all of them are pretty much hip-hop rap, except for Taylor's album. It's more of R&B. Very R&B.
Now, this is, admittedly, for our viewers, this is getting outside of my knowledge sphere. But is Kanye normally doing the producing on his albums as well? Or is this a big change for him to be doing producing, and that's why he did this big burst of it?
That's a great question. No, he's actually normally produced all of his own albums, which is why he's regarded as such a wonderful, phenomenal artist, because he produces his stuff, he writes his own stuff, he puts it all together. He's like, bam,
it's a whole package.
This. Yeah, whereas most artists, someone else produces for them. Someone else might even write their own lyrics for them, whether publicly or not publicly. But no, he does it all of his own. He actually started as a producer. Kanye, before he had an
Oh,
album.
actually, I have heard that. Yes.
Yeah,
Now that
so
you're saying it.
He was Jay-Z's producer. I mean, he did other stuff too, like smaller projects. But like what made him famous in the world of hip hop was his production for Jay-Z's albums. So if you ever enjoyed Jay-Z's Blueprint, which is like one of his most critical albums, Kanye produced that. He made that. And then he went on to like, oh, you know what? I want to make my own album now. I want to rap now. I want to be a rapper too. And of course, at the time, it was a cliche that every producer thought they could be a rapper. And so they kind of like told Kanye like, nah, don't do it, bro. Like, that's dumb, whatever. And he made it anyways, and it became one of the greatest like first albums for a rapper to ever come out. They called it Dropout. An amazing album. Anyways, not what we're talking about. We're talking about Ye. Ye, a fantastic introspective album by Kanye West. A man whose name you cannot say without stirring up so much controversy. There are a million and one reasons people hate him, and I think only 900,000 of them are valid. Or not valid, I should say. But anyways, so yeah, this album, if you want to understand where it's coming from, just look at the cover. So the cover is Jackson Hole, but there's writing on it. And that writing says, I hate being bipolar. It's awesome. So the previous solo album was The Life of Pablo. While he was touring on that, he had a mental breakdown where he had to be hospitalized for it. And from that hospitalization, he got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Like, he didn't know he had that before. Like, sure, he always knew, like, he was outspoken. We all knew that.
Oh, yeah.
He said crazy things all the time, did crazy things. But there was finally a diagnosis. And he was starting to receive medication for it. He takes break from the medication every now and then to produce his work.
That's unsurprising.
Yeah. I mean, I think almost every artist would do similar. But, yeah, so it was interesting to see, like, oh, there is a diagnosis behind this behavior that we can see. Isn't just like people speculating egotism, or egoism? I don't know. Big ego, which, yes, there is a big ego behind the ears of West, but it was interesting to see, like, there's also this, like, disorder that we can talk about and people have experience with. And so that influences heavily on this album, especially on that first track. That first track. It's titled, I Thought About Killing You. And as I mentioned to you before the podcast started, it is my personal favorite of the song. Just amazing. The writing, the delivery of it, just incredible. And there's 3 acts on this song. The first act is just like a monologue with this haunting, like, vocal, like, kind of a chorus background. There's a lot of
almost sounded like a choir in some
like a choir, like a ghostly choir in the background. Just I can't even mimic it because my voice sucks. But just that monologue. For anyone who's ever, if you followed my Facebook album where I do the whiteboard quotes, I actually had one of the quotes from that monologue in there, and it was actually something I was super hesitant to put out because of how dark the lyrics were. I have it memorized because I love it so much. He says, towards later in the part, he says, you see, if I was trying to relate it to more people, I'd probably say I'm struggling with loving myself. But that's not the case here. I love myself way more than I love you. And I think about killing myself. So best believe I thought about killing you today. And it's like, whoa. Just...
There's a lot there, Kanye. There's a lot there.
It's just, God, that monologue resonated so well with me. Like, I just kept listening to it over and over and over. I'm just like, wow, I love, like, feeling like these feelings I was struggling with for a long time actually put into words and put in a way like I can hear, understand, and realize, like, okay, so, like, finally someone's putting it out there in a way I can, like, digest it and, like, sit with and enjoy. Yeah, it's definitely one of those songs where as soon as I hear, like, the start of it, like, just tingles down my spine. I'm like, yes, listen to it. I can't wait.
No, there's 2 things with this song that I'm interested in. First is a question for you.
Yeah.
The question is, who's the audience on this one? Who is he talking to? Yeah. Because, I first listened to it and I think, oh, he's just talking to a stranger or, Kim or Jay-Z or fill in the blank person X.
Yeah.
But you look at the album cover and you think, is he really talking to himself?
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Who's the audience here?
The accepted interpretation, or the widely accepted interpretation, I'm not saying the correct interpretation, but the one a lot of audience thinks it's to himself.
That's what I was thinking as well.
It's like the manic talking to the depressed side, kind of saying like I'll kill you, but like, I'll also kill myself, but like, because it's crazy. Like, literally, that monologue is pretty much insane. But yeah, it's definitely like to himself, trying to like process that. Like, maybe it could be him talking to his disorder as a whole, and who knows. So I guess that's more up to interpretation. Definitely encourage people to listen to that monologue because it's a masterpiece. God, it's so good.
I would agree with that interpretation, though. That was my interpretation once I read into it a little bit more. And I think that what you were talking about, this manic, insane aspect coming out, that really stood out for me when I first heard it because, the word I guess I would use to describe it is almost churning. He's going, a lot of times he's repeating himself, saying the same exact line again and again.
A lot of repetition.
This repetition happening here. And there was an interesting bit in that section. I don't recall the exact lyric, but it's something about, I'm trying to behave rationally here. I'm weighing all the options. Want to assess what's the best choice here. But him being, manic or depressed and being arguably an unreliable narrator, with this churning aspect, doesn't sound very rational. It doesn't sound like he's truly weighing these options, even if that's what's going in his mind. There is this chaotic, very irrational aspect coming out. Yeah. And I thought that was very wonderfully highlighted, how he really thinks, oh yeah, I'm in control. I'm weighing these options. I'm really rationally thinking about this. But then us as the viewer thinking, oh, that doesn't sound very rational and logical to me. I thought that was very well done.
Yeah. And what's nice to know about that, like to add on to what you just said, he's like kind of an unreliable narrator. But I think it's worth highlighting. I mean, you probably meant this, but definitely worth highlighting. It's likely just not in his control either. Like, he's trying his best to control, like, have a rational decision, but in the end, you can't just mentally say, like, okay, I'm no longer bipolar. Yeah. I'm not manic today.
Right.
It's like, so it's like that control is taken from him, even though he's trying hard to regain that control. But yeah, no, that opening monologue, I love it every time. And it's complemented well by the following two acts. The second act, to sum it up quickly, basically he's trying to reach out to everyone and anyone, mostly his close loved ones, but literally to anyone, to help him. Help. I can't deal with this. I need assistance with this. Like, things are going south, and I may not be long for this world if I don't get help. I'm trying to call someone. Please help me. Kind of like that. But immediately, there isn't much of a transition between the second and third act. It just starts.
Right.
And that third act, he's back to saying, I'm the greatest there is. Fuck y'all. I'm amazing. Look at me. I'm so cool. I shift the paradigm. So it's my way of living. Ooh, look at me. I can do whatever I want. And I love that because it's that shift.
If you put bipolar into a song, there you go.
Yep.
That's how quickly it'll shift and how dramatic of a change it is.
Yep, absolutely. It's such a good song. And again, if you may not like the artist, Kanye, that's fine. That's fair. I can have a huge discussion about that. Highly recommend listening to that song. Just so good. You mentioned to me before, the songs that stood up to you on this album were the first, Just Thought About Killing You, Ghost Town, which is the second to last, and then Violent Crimes, which was the last. I'm willing to skip over the rest. That's fine.
Okay.
There are some songs in there I really do enjoy, but that's fine. Just for the sake of time. I'll actually glaze over them real quick, give a quick summary.
Yeah, let's do that. Because it does play into the final two.
Absolutely. So Yikes and All Mine kind of continue that manic episode that we saw starting at the end of I Thought About Killing You kind of just built up that energy all the time. He received some praise on Yikes, where he called being bipolar his like superpower. Because some people were saying like, you know what, it's nice to think of it that way for once. It's nice to see someone using it in a creative way and creating this unique product. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And there was All Mine, similar kind of attitude, far more sexual. Mm-hmm. Very, very sexual. Very, like, typical Kanye. This was the single released on the radio. I don't know why it was this one. I thought Yikes would
yeah, that's a very... I guess because it's what people are expecting. Yeah, so it was the single. That. I suppose.
Yeah.
It definitely didn't make me very happy, though. I didn't like that one.
I mean, it has the funny lines that Kanye's known for. I'll just say them real quick. I love your titties because they prove I can focus on two things at once. Like, ahaha, very funny. The other one... let me hit it raw, like fuck the outcome. Hey, we wouldn't be here without come. So it's like, okay, it's funny, it's clever. The first time you hear it, it's clever. One note I will say about that line, that last one, as grotesque as it is, worth noting, because he live streamed the listening party he had, and so I got to like watch.
You actually watched the live stream? Yeah, oh wow, interesting.
And it was really cool to see because a lot of big name artists were there, Future, 2 Chainz, and all these other fantastic people. Chris Rock gave like an opening monologue before the album started, so it was this huge event.
It was in Jackson Hole though, right?
Yep.
Wow.
They were all there. They all turned out, and it was cool to see that support. But what was funny was when that line came on and played for the first time, you could clearly say like a bunch of people in the audience just like kind of like, what? Like, coiling back and just like kind of furrowing their brow like, whoa, why did you say that? Which was just funny to see. But anyways, we'll move on. So after All Mine is Wouldn't Leave. Very cute song, but very personal. It's very, very personal.
That has a lot of... I don't know the backstory, but it was very obvious that there's a ton of backstory there.
I'll try to give a quick summary. Is back when Kanye said that really dumb thing he shouldn't have said. Basically,
which one?
Yeah, right. Basically, he said, the paraphrased quote is that he said, since slavery lasted for over 400 years, it sounds like a choice. So, obviously very controversial. He explained later what he actually meant, but of course no one was...
Right, no one wants to hear the explanation. Yeah. They want to hear the reaction, or they want to have something to react.
No, yeah. He was trying to more reference like how capitalism enslaves the poor to work for the rich. And he's trying to say like we should change our mindset, focus on breaking those bonds. But of course, didn't come out that way because Kanye's terrible at interviewing.
Horrid. Oh my god, that boy.
He has great ideas, but he has just the worst ways of saying them.
He really needs some work on articulating.
Yes. Or just stop interviewing. It would be fine. But anyways, I'm not here to defend him. He said something stupid, and he got a backlash, which he should have. Okay, but we're fine? We're good? Okay, good.
Yeah, moving on.
Okay. So anyways, this caused a lot of issue, especially with, like, any big names that worked with him. Of course, they don't want to be attached to that. And so he was almost lost a lot of, like his income, essentially. And he realized how much he messed up not only his image, but his family's image with Kim and their children. Mm-hmm. And of course, he tells her, like, look, I messed up really bad. If it's easier for you to just leave, because clearly you're already stressed out and you're crying and, like, we're losing everything, then just leave me. But, of course, Kim, she wouldn't leave, hence the title of the song. And so he's kind of like, song dedicated to her and her willing to stand with him. And she did a great job standing with him, like, defended him publicly.
Well, good on her.
Yeah,
I didn't know that, so good on her. Yeah, I'll give her the credit for that one.
Yeah, so she did good on that front. But yeah, that's that song. Next song, No Mistakes. I like the song, but it's very like a summery, kind of like mid 2000s feel, early to mid 2000s feel, or maybe even earlier than that. But it just sounds cool. Something you would cruise to. It's like this time of day actually. It's 5:30 p.m. The sun's starting to go down. The light's a little more orange than it is yellow or white. And you're kind of cruising down with the top down in your Chevy, and you're kind of just chilling. And it's like a very positive, like good feel vibe. kind of cheeky at times, of course, because it's Kanye.
Yeah.
But it's a feel-good song, and I really enjoy it. But we'll jump into the next song, Ghost Town. My God, Ghost Town. This Ghost Town was originally slated to be on Kids See Ghosts, the album.
Is that the Kid Cudi one?
Yeah,
okay.
the collab with Kid Cudi.
Yep.
So it was originally slated to be on there, but he decided last minute to make some rearrangements. Like, I'll take it out of there, I put this new one in there,
Mm-hmm.
and see how it goes. And my God, that song is, I don't know how to describe it aside from a masterful piece of art. Like, holy moly, all the samples, all the voices, all the features, just they all came together so well. And man, I don't even know how to really describe it. It's haunting, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it ends in kind of like this like super positive, super optimistic way. And I don't know, like, put into words how you felt.
Oh man, this one definitely was the. I'll say this is the masterpiece of the album. Even I thought about killing you. I thought that was very well done, but this one definitely stood out.
Yeah,
above all of the other ones. It has the most emotion, most power, and I think it also sums up, everything. A lot of the stuff that's coming before it. It really ties that together. Yeah, especially, the opening sample, I forget who it's from, but it's talking about the starry crown.
Yeah.
And, what was interesting with this is Kanye doesn't hesitate to compare himself to God, but in this comparison, actually...
Nowadays he does, actually.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he
interesting.
regrets doing that.
Oh, interesting. Well, that actually shows up in this one here because this is a very humble comparison here because it... I don't have the lyric right in front of me, but it's something talking about how, after on the seventh day God rested, man, I just want to rest on the seventh day for me. And you make that comparison. I mean, God rested on the seventh day, not because he was weary, but because everything was made. And Kanye is weary. He is broken. He is exhausted. He, is hoping for that. And you make that comparison, it doesn't make you sound like God right there if you require it just because you're, just dead completely.
I think it should be mentioned real quick. I think that part of the song is actually sung by one of the features, not by Kanye himself.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Party Next Door was featured on this track.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's him saying that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
It's a much deeper voice.
Mm-hmm.
If I had my phone more open, I would be able to look it up, but I'm not gonna bother anymore. But I did like that part. Yeah. Someday, I wanna lay down like I did on Sunday. Hold up. Yeah, really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kanye with his verse, very it's like beautiful, but like at peace. Very like almost zen like. Even though he's like acknowledging his faults and like, yeah, I messed up, but that's how life is. We messed up sometimes, but we push on better, we become better, and we do better things, and people may not see you for the greatness that you may have because of your mistakes, but it's there, and maybe they'll see it one day. And of course, Kid Cudi, he does the hook.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty good. I do like mimicking that because he just holds a lot of notes, and so it's like that's easier to do. And so I like singing along that part. Yeah, and his hook is kind of a sad hook. Yeah, I've been trying to make you love me, but everything I do makes you go further away from me. Yeah, and then at the very end we have this new. I don't want to say new, but he's recently become bigger, I should say. I don't know how to pronounce her name exactly, but I've been calling her 070 Shake. Her name is literally 070 space Shake. So I call her 070 Shake. It might be 070 Shake. My apologies, ma'am. But anyway, she does a phenomenal job with her part. Just singing the thing she sings and that refrain, and she does it over and over and over. Just saying like, we're still the kids we used to be. Nothing hurts anymore. We're free. There's so much optimism into it. But one thing I will say is there was a lot of discussion on whether it was actually optimistic or very dark. Because some people were saying like, oh, is she saying this because she's dead now? Like, isn't trying to imply that they're all dead and that's why they're so at peace because they're dead. And so now they're free. They can't feel pain because they're dead. People are like, no, I think it means like they've overcome a darkness and it's no longer hurting them and now they're free. And so there's a lot of back and forth on that. Originally I was in the dead camp, but now I'm not sure. I want to shift myself over to the other camp. But either way, however you interpret it, just her delivery on it is really, really well done. 070 Shake, as I mentioned, recently became bigger because she is the newest artist to be added to Kanye's music label, coincidentally called Good Music.
Yeah, that's an unsurprising title.
Yep. I mean, to be fair, good is an acronym for Getting Out Our Dreams.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
We know what it really is.
Yeah, it's definitely intentional. But like, she got signed to it, so like, she got signed with Kanye, which is crazy. And it's crazy that someone who just got signed to that is on a Kanye album, on a solo Kanye album. So it's like, her name will be immortalized, regardless of how the rest of her career goes. Like, I'm sure it'll only be going well from there, because she's going to have Kanye helping and producing stuff.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, this song is an incredible art piece. It's impossible to describe every reason for it without adding like 30 minutes to the podcast. So we're gonna have to move on to Violent Crimes. So Violent Crimes is the last song on the album. It is nothing like the title suggests.
Right. There's only maybe one little bit that implies any sort of real violence whatsoever, unless you're talking about a more philosophical concept of violence, not a physical, I'm gonna punch you in the face violence.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a very beautiful song. One note I do want to add, just when this album dropped, and of course that song came out, Tyler the Creator, who's another hip-hop artist, kept like, he was obsessed with Violent Crimes because of the chords playing in the background. And he's like, oh my god, these synth chords, they're amazing. Like, he posted like Instagram things about it. He tweeted about it. He's like, he was so in love with it. And with his his more recent music he's made with Flower Boy and Igor, his two latest albums, like, you can tell he used the synth chords a lot. So like, he was not only like already involved with it, but like still so inspired by it. So it was really cool. Like, I like when artists give other artists love, like, like showing off, like, damn, that's really cool. And so like, to see like Tyler like fanboy over this one song was really cool to see. But anyways, so the gist of this song is Kanye talking about being a father to a daughter, and all of the fears he now has as a father to a daughter, because it's difficult to raise children, but he also knows from his past experiences the trials and tribulations girls and women go through in their life, and he knows it so well because he perpetuated it a lot, and he admits it.
I mean, just a few songs beforehand, he's perpetuating a lot of those things.
Absolutely. And so he's like worried about it. He's like, oh my god, now she's gonna go through all this, and like, how do I like make her feel safe and make things better for her? What's an interesting note about this is one of his earlier albums, I'm forgetting if it's called Dropout or Late Registration, but I'm gonna paraphrase the line, but he says, I know karma's gonna get me because by the time I have a daughter, I'm gonna be dealing with these consequences. And now he has a daughter. Now the karma's coming back. Yeah, he has two daughters now. And so it's like, well, you made the bed, Kanye. Laying it. And so yeah, he's talking about how he's worried about it, like how he knows guys manipulate girls and the society manipulates women to self-image issues and stuff like that. He has a funny line where he says, I hope, I'm going to paraphrase, I hope you're draped more like me rather than your mommy. Like, because at the time Kanye was pretty fat. He gained quite a bit of weight. And so like, I hope you look chubby like me instead of. And
like, Kanye's always wearing like, baggy clothes.
And don't look like your mom, Kim Kardashian. And because I know like what happens when you look like that. Obviously not the best thing to be preaching about to a little girl, because, girls and women should be able to dress however they want. But it's coming from a place like from personal experience. Like, he knows like you're going to deal with that if it looks like that. So it's just, a nice beautiful, but also like very introspective song.
The thing that I find interesting about this, and well, he hasn't released anything new in this year, so we can't really say. But this comes at the very end of the album, so you could conceivably say that all the stuff in those previous songs where he is, perpetuating these fears, objectifying these women in the ways that he doesn't want his daughter to be experiencing, you could say that that's almost a before-after moment. That Violent Crimes is a pivot point where, now that he is a daughter artistically, or now that he's a father artistically at least, he's going to move away from that subject matter, from those sort of things. You could read it that way. If you don't see it that way, it sort of becomes paradoxical with him, preaching all these things, but then, not following up with it. And what does that say about him? What's he trying to say? Because he's not oblivious to that. If he were to do that, he knows exactly what he's doing.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to use the word hypocrisy, because I think he is very aware of it. And I think a lot of hypocrisy has a connotation of ignorance. Yeah. So I don't want to bring out that connotation of it, but he definitely isn't practicing what he's preaching historically. At least I'm curious moving forward if there would be a change there.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because he definitely perpetuates a lot of the issues that he's worried about, but I would argue it's not entirely within his control, because he knows sex sells. Everyone knows this.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be thinking like, well, why doesn't he make a song that's more wholesome and nice about women? He has. You just never heard it because the radio doesn't play it, the clubs don't play it, DJs don't play it. He's made plenty of these songs. They're super sweet and will make you cry because they're so beautiful and wholesome. But it doesn't sell. And he knows if he wants to further his business ventures, whether it's his clothing company, his music, his record label, all that, if he wants to make a future for his family, like that's really good for them, he has to sell, millions of records, so he can keep making that income and keep building up these investments. Like he released a single for his daughter. I talked about it before, called Only One. It's a lullaby song essentially, and it's a point of view of his late mother, who he mourned for a long time, kind of talking to him, saying like, I see the good in you, don't forget that there's good in you, you still are a beautiful person, there's love inside of you, don't forget it. And now you have this person, this little girl, back when his first daughter was born, his first child, so you have her and you have Kim, like you have this love in your world, don't forget it. And it's a really beautiful and amazing song with Paul McCartney's on it too.
Oh, okay. I have heard of that then. Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really nice. There's no cursing. It's very beautiful. You can play for kids. You play for babies. I would recommend it because it's so cute. But no one's ever heard of it. You have to be a Kanye fan to like really have heard of it. The production's amazing. The writing's amazing. But it didn't sell as well as I Love It featuring Lil Pump, which is completely sexual and completely objectifying. But he knows this. He knows that will sell way better, and he wants to make that money. He wants to build up his investments. He wants to build himself up and for his family, which you can't really blame him for. Sure, there could be better ways of doing it, but he knows like the formula, the niche that he fills. He's like, okay, if I keep doing this, I'll keep being super successful. And so, is there hypocrisy in it? Yeah, you could easily argue it. But at the same time, it's more a reflection of, society as a whole. Like, what do we value? What do we want to hear played in the club? Do you want to hear booty shaking songs, or do you want to hear lullaby songs? Yeah, what sells more? What do we hear in action movies?
Mm-hmm. And so, and that will be the decision that Kanye needs to make, because that unfortunately, at least in my opinion, that is the reality of our world. So, given the reality, what do you do? Are you going to prioritize the financials, the future success, the providing, all the things you're talking about, or are you going to say, you know what, that isn't worth it for the risk that it would pose to my daughter? That's not worth it. that'll be a decision he has to make. And, I guess not this year, but next year, when he probably is going to release his next album. I think that's probably when we'll find out.
He was supposed to drop his album like weeks ago.
Oh, really?
And then he keeps delaying it. So we'll see when it comes out.
We'll see. Yeah.
Who knows? But I would argue you're putting too much weight on Kanye alone. He's not the only one doing this. He's not the only one pushing these booty shaking songs, objectifying songs. It's everywhere. Every genre has this. Any hip hop song, any country song, really. Like
bro country is a thing anymore.
Yeah, and they're literally anywhere. You're gonna hear this music that's really objectifying, and because it sells across all cultures. We like pretty ladies. We like pretty men, strong men, and stuff like that. And it's like, that's just the reality. And he knows this. So he plays the game to further his investments, in the future of his children. Which, like, what parent are you going to say, like, you have the opportunity to make your future for your child amazing, but you have to do some things you're not exactly proud of. Would you do it? Of course they're going to do it. They're like, either a fantastic future or risking a bad future. So it's like...
Lexi and I have that fight a lot, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, she is... I'm far more on a principled side of, no, you do the right thing. It don't matter what the consequences are.
Okay.
She is far more on the side of, I'm going to do what's going to maximize what's good for our children. And obviously that's grossly simplifying our positions. Yes, of course. Yeah, there's tons of nuance there. Yeah. But that is definitely a struggle that we have. And, well... We don't have any kids yet, so it's not in our face yet.
I'm sure there's a balance that can be struck.
There is.
But, for Kanye himself, I think he's more on the side of like, I'm just going to make all the money I can.
I think so,
I can make that investment.
I think that's going to be his choice.
Again, I don't blame him too much for it. I mean, of course, you have a different view. That's fine.
Yep.
And what he does is what he does. Mm-hmm. And if he does to shift over, great. As long as the music still sounds good to me, like in the artistic sense, not just in the booty shaking sense,
right?
Then I'll still enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, up to him and how he wants to live his life, because it's his life, not my life, not your life, not anyone's life, except for Kanye's.
He's the only one with that control.
Yeah. And so what you guys do will be decide what he does. Oh, one thing I do want to mention about the new album, I think you would appreciate as a Christian. His new album, the title is Jesus is King. And it's a very gospel and religious focused album. As I mentioned before, he regretted calling him comparing himself to God and making that album Yeezus because it's just yay plus Jesus.
Yeah,
he regretted it.
Interesting.
And he went to like some church services and said like he regretted it. He wished he had never done it. But he's gonna try to dedicate himself more to God now through his music. So we'll see how the album comes out.
This is the one that should have been released a few weeks ago or something. Okay.
Several thousand people have heard the song already.
Really?
Like he played it in like small theater, well, not small, very large theaters. He had like listening parties and like he showed these films he was working on. So some people have heard it and they've said like pretty good things about it. Like
interesting.
Obviously very religious focused, but he still has like really good music in there. There was one song, what was it? Take this gospel or preach this gospel, something like that. And they said like that one's actually one of the really good songs in the album. And so I'm excited to hear it, see how the influence goes because the last time he made a very religious song was like Jesus Walks. You've heard that song?
I've heard of the song, but I couldn't tell you anything about it.
The takeaway of the song is it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a gangster, drug dealer, a stripper, prostitute, or a racist, a bigot, a hateful person. Jesus walks with everyone. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yep.
They walk with you. And I hope he walks with me too and helps me because I feel lost at times and tired at times, but he uplifts me. I know he can. So I hope he can keep walking with me and everyone else who needs him in his life or in their life.
Wow.
And yeah, highly recommend the video.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that song, but
on his first album.
Probably am going to go listen to that then.
Yeah, it's a really good, I love that song. But yeah, so it's a fantastic song. So like a whole album focusing on that theme. And if he can make good music, back it up. I am all for it.
Right. Okay. That's the ultimate standard. Is the music good, and are you enjoying what you're listening to?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we'll see what the future holds for Kanye, for the Avett Brothers,
because they actually have an album coming out here in the next few weeks as well. So both Kanye and the Avett Brothers will be listening.
Yeah, and we'll have to check them out. But for now, I guess we're gonna have to call it. So this has been another episode of the RG Podcast. Connor, thank you so much for joining me today. Coming all the way out. It's crazy. It's so good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And to all of you, the listeners, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the RG Podcast. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you'll stay tuned for a future episode. All right. Have a good one. See ya.